Hi, everybody. Welcome to Kindred Skulls. I'm Matt Freese. I'm here with my co-host, Nick Olson. Nick, I kept telling people that, you'd probably be back like a little later in the season. And here you are. It's only like the third podcast I've done since kind of that split announcement. I know you're probably not going to be able to make it every single week, but really glad to have you back here, chop it up with you. Welcome back. How you doing?
It's good to be back, man. The Vikings, it's that meme. Just when I thought I was out, they brought me back in, like I was ready to kind of be like, this will be an interesting rebuild year. We're projected to be last in the NFC North. Not going to make a lot of noise. We got the rookie quarterback, so it's like a fun rebuilding year. Is like what basically everybody was going in, and all of a sudden, we just beat maybe the best team in the NFL. Sam Darnold looked legitimately really good. The defense looks insane. The coaching has it humming on also firing on all cylinders on both sides of the ball. So it's been really fun to watch, and my life is crazy right now in a good way, crazy good, but like I find myself creating time for Viking stuff just because it's such a cool time to be talking about the Vikings. So yeah, I had to be back. I'm sorry I won't always make it, but I kind of feel like our value to you, dear listeners, is that we try and put in the work. And so I was kind of like, well, if I can't really put in the work, I don't want to just for this, for the sake of like if I haven't actually put in the work in the film room and stuff. But here, I've tried to make a good faith effort. Not as much as you have, Matt. You've been really grinding the tape. But yeah, so I'm back and I'm excited to dive into this 49ers film because it was good stuff all through. That said, Matt, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great. Yeah, no, like you said, it's a fantastic time to be covering Vikings football, right? Because you come into the season, it's kind of a reset year, right? You move on from your long-term quarterback. You're like really excited about the rookie and JJ McCarthy, and then he gets hurt, and then you're like, all right, well, I guess whatever happens, happens, right? And if they win football games, it's gravy. I don't think at the beginning of the year, if you told me, hey, the Vikings are going to beat the 49ers and look like a legitimate high level football team doing it, right? Like there was absolutely a world where we win a fluky game against the San Francisco 49ers. And there was some weird stuff that went on in this game. Like it wasn't a perfect game from the Vikings, but they were legitimately competitive with the 49ers, right? In this football game. If you had told me that, I would have been over the moon with how this team is done. And it's not like, oh, Sam Darnold is suddenly a masterpiece. Like I think he's played well, and we'll get into everything that went in the game. But it's, just everything seems to be firing on all cylinders out the gate for the Vikings, which is really funny considering the start of last year, right? Where it was just like these absolutely terrible mishaps that cost us games against the Bucks and then against the Eagles, right? Like 7 turnovers, I believe, between those two games. And they've still turned the ball over in pretty dumb ways, but like, they're winning games throughout that because they're playing so well on defense. And I think, you mentioned, hey, your life is kind of crazy right now. Well, you know what else is crazy? Brian Flores' scheme on defense, according to Brock Purdy. So that was
Nice
awesome
transition. Well done.
Yeah. So let's transition it into the game against the 49ers, right? As I said, Brock Purdy had that quote, pretty awesome. 6 sacks, 1 interception, 1 fumble. Almost all of those actually occurred in the third quarter of this football game. There were 5 sacks. And by the way, the quote unquote fumble recovery, right, where the ball slips out of Brock Purdy's hands, gets caught by Jihad Ward. That was a sack technically. So that's one of the 5 sacks in that quarter. Not really a sack in my opinion, right? Like it's just kind of a fluky play. It really should go down as an interception if you were asking me, but I don't really care. So, it's still an absolutely stunning quarter, right? Like nothing at all went right for the 49ers. They completed 2 passes in 9 dropbacks. There was another Purdy scramble that got 11 yards, but it was kind of interesting because I've been charting the coverages through 2 weeks for the Vikings, right? And in the 49ers game, up until that point, they had run 0 quarters or cover 6 reps, like quarter, half, or half quarter. If you remember, they had Donatello years. It was all about cover 6, cover 8, the half quarter, half stuff, right? And it was nonsense. It didn't work that year. This game, it worked brilliantly against the 49ers as a changeup coming out of halftime, right? So they don't run it at all in the first half. They run it a bunch in the second half. And I think that really had Purdy's head spinning a little bit when they entered the second half, right? The Vikings run a huge variety of coverages already. They run things from all sorts of funky formations, right? You've got guys sprinting back from the line of scrimmage to the deep middle. On plays, you've got, Josh Metellus as the pull runner in those situations. You've got all sorts of weird transitions in the coverage. And now they're actually able to vary up what coverages they're running a lot more than I think they were last year. Like if you look at some tracking data, and I will say, there was a link that had tracking data from week 1 of the coverages the Vikings ran. I didn't really agree with the overall percentages. The only thing I have from last year in terms of data of what coverages were run was that link. So I'm not sure it was 100% accurate, right? But given what I saw there, the Vikings ran very little cover 1 last year, and they ran very little cover 4 or quarters last year, and very little quarter half. This year, they're running cover 1 a lot more than I think they did last year. Just anecdotally from watching it, and the numbers, they've run it about, I think like 15 times out of almost it was like 97 total coverage snaps. They're running quarters equal to what they're running cover 2, which is any cover 2 or Tampa 2, and cover 3, right? Last year was a ton of cover 2 and a ton of cover 3 out of these really weird looks. This year, it's almost equal between cover 2, cover 3, and cover 4. So if you're a quarterback, you don't know pre-snap if you're at all, because of how funky the Vikings are in the ways they get into these coverages. If you're going to see quarters, cover 2, cover 3, or even man coverage, which they've run a lot more of. And, maybe there will be tells that happen as the season goes along, but it has to be absolutely terrible for a quarterback to try to decipher that post-snap. And I think that's really gets to the heart of what Brock Purdy means there. So I went on a long time about that. I don't know if there's anything you've picked up or anything to pull out of that, Nick.
Yeah, I thought it was actually really interesting, and having your actual charting data was illuminating, because after the Giants game, I was really interested to see what Flores did with the scheme coming out of last year, because that was kind of a Mickey Mouse defense schematically. Like, it was obviously, I think he, made the proverbial Iron Man suit out of a box of scraps last year, but this year he's got the dudes. And so I wanted to see, like, is he going to continue running this funky college zone blitz defense? And we've seen a lot less blitzing, but we've seen it almost reminded me a little bit of like a Zimmer defense back in the day, where like there's just so many different things he can do from similar looks. He can run Tampa 2 from a cover 1 or a cover 0 look. You've got Harrison Smith and Josh Metellus lining up to blitz and then dropping back. Metellus as the pull runner, or Harrison Smith as like he'll line up at the snap and he'll drop back at the snap as one of the cover 2 safeties. So you do a lot of really interesting things, really interesting disguises, but you're kind of able to. It wasn't what I was expected, because I was thinking either he would build off of that college zone blitz defense, or he would go back to a Patriots man heavy stuff, especially after you go out and you sign these cornerbacks to run a more man heavy scheme. And he's using the man heavy stuff especially on third downs, when it makes the most sense, where you really need to, you're less worried about an explosives that the zones help with, and you're more worried about just stopping completions, which man coverage does help with on third and fourth down. But like in the meantime, he's like a pitcher now that has a 4 or 5 solid pitch mix. So that being able to use that, I don't want to say complexity, because it's not necessarily complex, but he's able to throw a lot of more various disguises at quarterbacks, and you saw how it frustrated Brock Purdy in this game. So really good stuff up front. It kind of matches. They're not having to blitz as much. That helps on the back end. They're getting home. They're running more stunts than I was expecting them to. We'll get into all that good stuff, but yeah, it's been really interesting to see how Flores has evolved his scheme, because it's not Patriot stuff, it's not last year's stuff, it's something new and different and cool, and I think that's really interesting.
Yeah, and I mean, like, he hasn't invented a new way to cover receivers, right? I think that the key is he's invented new ways to get into the looks. that we're getting to. And I think the other key for the Vikings is all of the free agent additions, right? You talked about the ability to run more man coverage. They are running more man coverage because they have the ability to do that with Shaq Griffin and Stephon Gilmore. They don't need to run pure man coverage with those guys. And, I still have a little bit of questions about Stephon Gilmore's ability to hold up against pure speed, right? As a man coverage type of player. Or something like that, or Shaq Griffin's consistency on a down-to-down basis. But having competence at those outside corner positions has enabled them to run more man coverage and more cover 4 like that, like I talked about it. So it's not just a cover 3, cover 2 mix, right? And that's the only thing you have to be watching out for as a quarterback. Now you have 4 different options that you have to look out for. As you mentioned, it's like a pitcher with 4 pitches. If a pitcher has 2 pitches, you can maybe get better at guessing the 1 or 2 pitches, right? Even if they're really good pitches. When they have 4, you're kind of guessing all over the place if they can throw any of them at you in any situation. And that's what the Vikings have been able to do. And like I said, I think upgrading to Gilmore and Griffin on the outside, as opposed to Evans and Blackman or whoever was rotating in last year, has been a really big boon for them at that position, because the coverages that they weren't running last year are the more corner dependent coverages. Quarters is a lot more difficult for a corner to play than cover 2 is. We talked about that probably with Mike Zimmer, right? Where we were running a ton of cover 2 because we didn't have the corners at the end of the Mike Zimmer era. He's got the famous quote, you can go down to the corner store or the 7-Eleven or whatever it was and get a cover 2 corner. So I really think that has made a huge difference. And then the underneath zones were also something that I highlighted as making a huge difference. I actually have an article coming out for zone coverage tomorrow that's highlighting Blake Cashman, who I thought had a phenomenal game in this game. And I think his ability in underneath zones is the reason for that. Last year we had Ivan Pace and Jordan Hicks, neither of whom are great coverage players. Like Pace, absolutely awesome moving forward, still struggles in coverage. I think we saw a couple struggles in coverage from Pace in the 49ers game still, right? And that's something that he wasn't asked to do a lot in college. He hasn't had full reps in the NFL, and we run a really funky defense in that way. So I think it's going to take him time to get better. He's got the athletic ability to be able to do it, but he's not there yet. Blake Cashman is a fully formed coverage player, and that's why he defended 3 passes in this game, including 1 interception, and made a ton of plays all over the field. I think he had 13 total tackles.
Yeah. Cashman, I mean, we talk about the guys that Flores went out and got this offseason so that he could run his vision of the defense. And I feel like they had a lot of really valuable guys. I think Greenard probably the prize of the free agency, but the biggest impact comparing what we had before to what we have now, I think, is Cashman, going from Jordan Hicks to Cashman. And that's not a shade on Hicks, but it's just Hicks is such a different breed of linebacker. He's more of a downhill thumping, run defense first kind of linebacker. Not that he's like huge or anything, but like that was his calling card. That was what he was good at. And he was a little bit stiffer. He came out of the college as like a super athlete, but I don't think that was the version of him we saw last year. But like Cashman, man, does he have like that initial burst, that initial range, and he marries that with good coverage instincts. Like on that first 3 and out, the opener of the game, I took some time trying to figure out, like, is this like cover 1, and is he the rat player, or is Harrison Smith the rat player? And
yeah, I put that as cover 1, and he was the rat. I think Harrison Smith has man on the running back, which is a wrinkle, I think, in cover 1 that the Vikings are running. They're putting safeties who are deep, like 10, 15 yards deep, in man coverage on backs, and then just trusting that those backs won't get out in time and kind of cause damage in those situations. The other wrinkle that they have is they're either doing that or they're blitzing the back and keeping them in as a green dog, as opposed to like green dogging where you're waiting to see what the back does. They're actually actively blitzing him, I should say. So that's interesting. But yeah, he is the rat. And the cool thing about that is it's 3-by-1, right? So you've got 3 receivers in a bunch to that side. The 2 inside receivers are running a curl, right? But Cashman, as a rat, typically you'd be under the number 3 receiver. And that's why Brock Purdy's confident in throwing that ball, because he's got a one-on-one matchup, he thinks, with Deebo Samuel. But Blake Cashman is fast enough to get underneath that throw, right? And that was what was phenomenal about that, is he not only, shields underneath the number 3, but also has the speed to get around and get under and deflect the pass to the number 2. It's a crazy play.
And Purdy, I think, placed that outside too. So that's like a very That's not something you would think. Like, I think of the rat like he's a hold player, he sits in the middle and he protects against mesh. But this was a little bit of almost like a Harrison Smith type. I'm just going to read the quarterback and follow his eyes. And so having those instincts, we saw what a difference. I mean, it produced the Josh Metellus interception later in the game, getting his hands on a lot of things, forcing Brock Purdy off throwing lanes. And when you have a linebacker out there who can muck up throwing lanes in the middle of the field, transforms your defense in a lot of different ways. Jordan Hicks, God bless him, couldn't really do that as well. So having Cashman, I mean, this is why we signed him. We didn't think he was going to look this good this early on, but like, I think you saw this on both sides of the ball. And it's just very funny that one side it was Fred Warner, who I think everybody knows is probably the best linebacker in football. And the other side was Blake Cashman, who I don't think many people recognize as one of the best line. And he had his ugly plays and he got swallowed up in the run game too. But like, in coverage, man, was he a difference maker. And that's true both on the plays where he got his hand on the ball, or he had a sack, or he had, tackles at the line of scrimmage because he was reading things immediately. That's another thing I'd highlight with him, is he processes things even better than I was expecting him to based on his Texan tape last year. But also like his ability to just sort of force quarterbacks to their next read because he's in the passing lane and he takes things away. So it was cool to see that. It was cool to see something that you saw last year and understand why, okay, this is why Flores is bringing him in, and then to see it immediately in the first couple games. So a heck of a game from Cashman. Hope it continues because it really does change how they can run these zone defenses.
Yeah, it's pretty validating to see. I'm sure it's extremely validating for the Vikings front office to be like, all right, we've got a problem with our linebackers in coverage. We're going to bring this guy in to fix it, and then it works immediately. Also, that pick is a similar scenario. Purdy led Juszczyk away from Cashman on that play. Like, he's trying to turn Juszczyk back inside, and Cashman gets all the way across his body. He started at the left hash, went over to the right hash to make the play. Like, or I guess right hash to left hash if you're looking at it from the offensive side. But either way, like, just a crazy quick closing speed. And, but I think all of the things you said is correct. The instincts in the run game, especially he beat blockers to spots a couple times. It was really impressive. He does get caught up on blocks sometimes still, I think, in the run game. So like, if you can get hands on him, you're going to be able to win that way. But outside of that, like, I really don't have many negatives to this guy's game.
I'm not going to fault Cashman too much for losing. Sorry, not to interrupt, but I'm not going to fault Cashman too much for losing a one-on-one with Trent Williams. Like, I can live with that.
Yeah. At the end of the day, like, it's a trade-off you're 100% willing to take, right? So I think the rest of the defensive line is notable, right? And I talked about this a little bit last week, where the Vikings in their 4-down passing situation fronts were putting all edge rushers in the game across the board. Like, and they'll sub out Turner for somebody else sometimes, but like, typically it's Van Ginkel, Greenard, Jihad Ward, and either Turner or like Pat Jones, right? 4 edge rushers all on the line of scrimmage, and they're just sending 4 the whole time. Ward had a great game with stunts against the Giants. This time it was the Pat Jones game, I guess. I think his plays are a little bit DJ Wanham-ish, I would say, in terms of he's gotten 2 basically free unblocked sacks. But, I think he's taken his game to another level. Like, the level of physicality that he played with, his ability to push Trent back into the pocket. I think Trent eventually anchored on both of the plays, even the sack where Purdy got pushed into Jones rather than kind of Jones perfectly making the play on his own. But like, you're still compressing the pocket against Trent Williams, making Purdy have tight spaces to throw from. So I think it was a pretty successful day for him as well.
Yeah, I mean, look, he's not as good as the sack total suggests, but he's a productive, useful backup rotational pass rusher, and he knows how to win as a pass rusher. The comparisons to Wanham's are probably a little on point because I don't think he's like there's sack production here beyond what he's winning. I actually thought like Greenard was getting very consistent, immediate pressure. So that's kind of like the. He's had a couple really good games against some really good tackles. So I think the sacks are going to come for him. If folks are wondering, like, why is this guy that we spent all this money for not getting home? I think he will.
He's the pass rusher that's winning consistently one-on-one. Like, none of the other guys are winning like he is.
He wins fast. Like it's just blur around the edge, and he has a lot of different ways he can win outside. He counters inside. Really good use of his hands immediately. Turns upfield nicely. So, yeah, Greenard is a really good player. But Pat Jones and the way they run their games up front, it's just sort of like I think you're going to see a lot of random. You're probably going to have a Jerry Tillery multi-sack game or something like that, where like, yeah, they're running these loopers. I mean, like Harrison Phillips will get pressures because he's like getting a one-on-one with a center and bull rushing him while somebody else is looping around. And they're going to get pressure that way, and it works. Like in a one-on-one pass rush situation, I think Greenard is probably the most impressive right now. Dallas Turner shows flashes, but he looks like a rookie to me right now. And Van Ginkel, obviously, last week we had the Van Ginkel game. He continues to be a very valuable chess piece for the defense. But yeah, pass rush all around has been good. I mean, anytime you come away with, what was it, 6 sacks, that's really good production. So.
Well, I will say we almost had a Van Ginkel game again this week because he deflected a pass that was a screen pass, like when the 49ers were way backed up early in the game, just deflected it. He obviously deflected the Debo pass on the 49ers like last offensive play, right before they kicked the field goal, and it led to a huge loss. And he deflected the pass on the 4th down, on the goal line early in the game that Harrison Smith ended up eventually breaking up. So like, he's got that screen read down. Like it's crazy how good he is at being able to get to that ball. And then also was able to get his hands up against Trent, I think, blocking him and deflect a pass on the goal line. So really just great instincts from him, even if he's not like winning one-on-one as a pass rusher as often as say like a Greenard is, right? Like obviously he's been a huge chess piece for the Vikings. And I think his ability to play off ball, like there was a snap where he just was completely underneath somebody in coverage, deterred the throw. He does that on a relatively consistent basis. I think, the flexibility that he offers to this defense is certainly an upgrade over our second edge rusher as a group last season. So really, I like every addition that the Vikings made this offseason seems to be working out really, really well. Maybe the other shoe will drop at some point, but we gotta be excited about it until then.
Yeah, it's awesome. And you're seeing everything we talked about on the back end of the coverage, having dudes up front, multiple dudes, not just a Danielle Hunter, but multiple dudes who can win up front and who can win in different ways. Van Ginkel has a good spin move. He's got a good outside swat and rip, and Greenard has lots of different ways he can win too, and they win fast. And they come at you, and these guys, the interior tackles, you don't think of the interior defensive linemen as pass rushers, any of them, but like they've been getting home either through stunts or by the D-line coach like relying on their power and getting them one-on-ones with like maybe an undersized center or a guard who's not able to anchor as well and driving them back into the pocket. So being able to do that with 4 dudes or 5 dudes rather than 6-7 dudes that we're seeing a lot of last year really unlocks a lot of things for the whole overall scheme. So it's nice to see it all come together, including against some very good offensive lines, some very good offenses. Well, at least one of them. I don't know if Giants is another story.
Yeah,
we already did the Giants.
No, very good individual offensive linemen in the case of the Giants with only Andrew Thomas. Everybody else on the team is very bad. It's like Andrew Thomas, Malik Neighbors, and Dexter Lawrence, and that's literally the entire Giants roster. But no, I think we've talked a lot about the pass game, right? The varied coverages have done so much to help out the Vikings. The pass rushers are doing their jobs. Like it's been phenomenal as a pass rush unit, I think, in general through 2 games. But we haven't talked all that much about the run defense yet. Run defense was kind of up and down, a little boom or bust in this game for me. And I think that's a reasonable thing for your run defense to be against the San Francisco 49ers. I mean, what are the 49ers if not renowned for how they're able to run the football, right? Like, and it's been consistent with Kyle, no matter who the running back is. Obviously, Christian McCaffrey was out this game, but Jordan Mason has had a phenomenal 2 games in his absence, right? I think, because we got to see him on national television, right? I think most people probably saw the 49ers Jets game where Mason ran all over them. Mason was on his way to running all over the Vikings. Like, if the game script were a little different, that's probably what we're talking about, is just how the Vikings, the 49ers were able to run Mason down the Vikings' throat. But I do think there were some positive things for the run defense and things that I thought the 49ers were able to exploit, right? So I'll talk about the exploitation first. One of the things I noticed consistently was the 49ers were running zone away from situations where the Vikings had two defenders on the backside. So like they were typically blitzing a linebacker, like if it was Ivan Pace or Blake Cashman, or maybe had somebody walk down on the line of scrimmage, and the 49ers could either not block both of those guys, or, just kind of kick out block one of those guys, end up with two guys on the backside of the play. And then Mason had a lot of space on the front side of the play. The one run where I think it was Van Ginkel made a touchdown saving tackle was exactly this, where it's just like, you don't have the bodies on the front side of the play to be able to consume all of the blockers to get somebody a free run at the ball carrier, which makes the cutback lanes really, really easy for Mason, in my opinion. So I thought the 49ers did a good job of either diagnosing when those looks were going to come from the Vikings. I don't know, maybe there was some sort of tell, and getting into the play that was able to exploit them, or they, just kind of got lucky, right? And the Vikings were trying to do something or had a tell on the 49ers where they were wrong. So, that'll be interesting to see moving forward. But I still think, outside of that, the Vikings made a number of negative plays, and that came all across the board. The linebackers, like we talked about, Cashman made a couple of reads where he just beat the blocker to the spot, right? And that killed the play. There were a couple other things. So I don't know if you have any thoughts on the run game overall for the 49ers.
Yeah, I thought it was productive, but I think also you expect a Kyle Shanahan coached rushing game to be productive. And I'll say, if you told me going into the game that the Vikings were going to predominantly major in cover 2, cover 4, middle field open type coverages where you're playing and maybe a little bit outmatched, or at least even in the box count in the run game, and that the 49ers would come away with a 4.1 yards per carry. I mean, Mason got 5, so some of that is juiced by Brock Purdy sacks / scrambles, and some of it is like, they stuffed a Guerrero.
So that Debo play at the end of the game counted as a -9 yard run. So that's actually a decent amount of the negative yardage there. But yeah.
Like, they rushed less efficiently against the Jets, or the 49ers were more efficient running the ball against the Jets than they were against the Vikings, despite the fact that the Jets, I think, are more talented as a defense than the Vikings are, and the fact that the Vikings were schematically playing a little bit one hand behind their back with how Brian Flores likes to I would say he dedicates more resources against the pass generally, as both in the blitzing and he's not like I don't care about run defense, like he's gap sound or whatever, but I think he dedicates. So based on all that, I do think there's a lot to clean up. There's second level defenders making the wrong reads or oftentimes just getting swallowed up. I mean, you saw Pace, you saw Cashman, you saw Metellus get blocked out of plays. You saw some bad, like the touchdown run to Mason. They just a gulf opened up between the blockers, and that's we got to do better than that. And somebody has to get into that gap. You saw even the interior defensive linemen get pushed around a little bit, like Harrison Phillips, who I think continues to be a great guy. Shout out to him for his extension because he's worth that money and more. But he, got displaced a little bit, which that'll happen on combo blocks. But I'm used to seeing him handle combo blocks a little bit better. So things to clean up. At the same time, at the end of the day, I think this is going to be one of the most challenging, even without Christian McCaffrey, one of the most challenging rushing attacks, just because of how well coached they are, how well designed it is, and the way they get into it from so many different looks. So I can live with it, even if I think there's a lot of room for improvement, I guess.
Yeah, and I don't mean to trash the run defense by any means. I thought it was a solid effort against a really, really good running football team, right? And one of the things you see with the Vikings is that they absolutely fly to the football on defense, right? You see it with screens, you see it with once a player catches a short pass, you see it in the run game, and that's how Cashman beats those blocks. That's how Ivan Pace gets in there and slips under a block completely from an offensive lineman and kind of makes a play in the backfield. You see all the edge rushers play hard. Like this is from last week, but the play where Andrew Van Ginkel took out the Giants offensive lineman to allow, I think it was Jonathan Bullard to make a play, right? Like just the selflessness and effort from the Vikings is there. The interior line, I think I agree with you, didn't have the best game. Taki Taimani had a couple nice plays, which was great to see him hold up from his great preseason performance into a regular season game, right? Against one of the best teams in the NFL. He got on the field and made a couple nice plays. There was another play where he got completely washed out of the play, right? So it's up and down, but I think that's the story of what the Vikings run defense was. And when we're talking about going against the San Francisco 49ers, I think that's a win for the Vikings, right? There are going to be other teams with quality rushing attacks on the schedule. Obviously, we play the Lions. The Packers in a couple weeks just did a phenomenal job running all over the Colts, right? It'll be interesting to see with Malik Willis probably being their starting quarterback and the quarterback run game, kind of what the Vikings run defense will do against that. But I think overall, very positive returns from the defense in general. You look at the 49ers put up almost 400 yards, like that's a lot of yardage. But the 49ers always almost put up 400 yards. They haven't had, I looked it up because I was kind of interested. The 49ers have gotten over 300 yards in every single game that Brock Purdy has played or been the starter, with the exception of the Eagles game in the playoff where he got hurt, obviously, like immediately in the game. And they were an absolutely inept offense that game because Brock Purdy was hurt and they had to go to Josh Johnson, who also got hurt. So then they didn't have a quarterback. But I kind of got off on a digression there. The only other game other than that, in the Purdy era has been the Browns game last year, where it was kind of a wet, messy game. This game's in a dome, right? You don't have the weather aspect creating that issue. And even in that game, the Browns scored 17 points. 17 is the fewest amount of, the 49ers scored 17 points. 17 is the fewest amount of points the 49ers have scored with Brock Purdy as their quarterback in a game. And the Vikings have done it twice in a row now. So obviously there's been a whole bunch of talk about Brian Flores has Kyle Shanahan's number, like yada, yada, yada. Well, maybe he does. Maybe we're specifically the 49ers kryptonite, but it's still great to be the kryptonite of one of the best teams in the NFL. So just absolutely love it from the defense.
Yeah, good stuff.
So let's flip it over to the offensive side of the football. The Vikings did not run nearly as many plays on offense as the 49ers did. So, the tape going through it, I got through the defense last night and it was a slog. But getting through the offense today was a little bit quicker. One of the first things that pops out to you, I think, is the run game for the Vikings is still humming, right? I wrote an article on Aaron Jones after the first week and kind of some of the run game diversity and how the offensive line was playing, which I thought was a really positive sign. And I think that continued into week 2. The offensive line, especially as it got towards the end of the game, was absolutely demolishing the interior of the defensive line for the 49ers. Like there were duo runs where they were getting like 4 or 5 yards of push downfield from the interior combos on the defensive linemen into the linebackers. Duo, I thought was the real winner for the Vikings in this game. They didn't run a ton of it. I think they only ran it a handful of times, but the first 2 times they ran it, it went for a big play because Travarius Ward was playing way too far inside on it. And Ty Chandler bounced it. That was his big 25-yard gain. And then Aaron Jones got a 9-yard gain on it as well. Ty Chandler, I thought ran hard. He was the explosive player that he is. I thought the run blocking was pretty dang good on those plays where Ty Chandler was running the ball. So I'm not ready to be like a Ty Chandler. I mean, if you've listened to this podcast for a long time, I'm never going to be let's play Ty Chandler over Aaron Jones kind of guy. But, it was good to see from him. Aaron Jones didn't quite have the production that Chandler did, but I didn't really have anything wrong with his game. And a lot of the lack of production was kind of at the end. The Vikings, it was kind of weird. They didn't have many long play drives because they got the ball in the red zone a couple of times. They had the 99 or 98-yard drive. Technically, I guess that was actually only 2 plays, right? Because one of them's a 97-yard touchdown pass. They had a couple plays with the fumbles and interceptions, a couple drives with the fumbles and interceptions that kind of ended prematurely. So not a lot of long sustained drives for the Vikings in this game. So I don't think there was really a lot of running the football because of that, at least early on, right? When they were trying to kill the clock, they ran it a little bit more, in the fourth quarter. But Overall, I was very happy with the run game, and in particular with the interior blocking, right? That's combos, whether it's Darisaw and Brandell, or Brandell and Bradbury, or Bradbury and Ingram, or Ingram and O'Neal, comboing up to the second level linebackers was getting consistent push against the 49ers all game, and I wanted to shout out the offensive line for that.
Yeah, not used to seeing that level of vertical displacement from the Vikings offensive linemen. I mean, we've had these tiny little athletic zone guys for so long, and they're still a zone team. Like they haven't gotten away from that
Yes.
identity, but seeing them execute duo runs really well, just the upfront duo combo blocks, the ace blocks, and everything. Blake Brandell, like kind of a little bit of a revelation for him, like in the run game. Like we saw last time we saw him, he looked like this is like a pretty competent tackle. But now as a guard, it like, wow, this guy flashes. I mean, he's not perfect. He got walked back in the pass protection a few times, but he is. It's exciting having someone just come in and perform. So I shout out to him, but shout out to Chris Cooper too, who seems to have everybody playing at a level higher than you expect them to. And that's true. The screen game too. Like these guys get out in front of it. But we already knew like Darisaw, O'Neal, these guys are really good offensive linemen and they can generate some push. But being able to see it from the interior guys too, and Ingram, I mean, that guy packs a wall up as well for all his inconsistencies. Like he's got the highlight reel looks good for him in the run game. So it's they're still executing and their their inside zone, their mid zone stuff really well. They're integrating the jet motion a little bit more naturally into the flow of the offense. I agree with you. Aaron Jones is in every phase, maybe not pass protection, I don't know. A better running back and a better runner. Ty Chandler, like on that duo run where he bounced it outside, I was like, okay, I'm not gonna argue about 25 yards, but like I probably didn't have to bounce that all the way outside. So there are a few runs where I question his vision, but he's developing a little bit more patience, at least some of it. It used to be he was look at his 10-yard split and just boom go, but sometimes he'll boom go too fast. Jones, by contrast, shows a lot more patience. So I like Jones. At the same time, when Chandler is nearly 10 yards per carry and Aaron Jones has a fumble at the 1 yard line, we're going to give Chandler his flowers too. So
yeah, absolutely. I thought Chandler had a good preseason. Like I thought he was significantly improved in the preseason. I thought he had a rough game week 1 against the Giants, and I thought he had a good game obviously here, right? Like I think you can't look at what Chandler did in this game and say anything other than that was good. So positive signs from him, but great to have him as a backup between somebody who I think is a really high quality running back in Aaron Jones. Like, and the thing that stands out to me for Aaron Jones out of all of this stuff is back-to-back weeks, he's had third downs where he's been stopped before the line to gain and somehow found a way to convert that first down. This game, I think it was very early on the game. It was the third one. They handed it to him inside, and he just has the ability to stay upright, to keep all of his body parts against the ground. Kind of like that Kittle touch. We didn't talk about the Kittle touchdown, but like, I don't know how George Kittle contorted his body in a way where he was able to get the ball over the line on that touchdown. Like that was absolutely ridiculous. Aaron Jones kind of has a little bit of that to him. So really, really, really happy with the early returns for Aaron Jones. And like, I get a little bit salty about like DeAndre Swift because I just don't think he's a very good running back, right? And like you look at what Aaron Jones has done for the Vikings for cheaper than what DeAndre Swift has done for the Bears through 2 games, and it makes me feel really good about myself. So
yeah, just a fun player, just not. Everybody knows he can't read run plays, and that is kind of an important trait. So.
Yeah, exactly. So the thing on offense that we should probably give the most flowers to is the massive 97-yard touchdown pass from Sam Darnold to Justin Jefferson. Just a ridiculous read, like an arrogant read by Sam Darnold on this play, in my opinion, right? You have Justin Jefferson in double coverage, and he just outruns the 2 49ers defenders. The safety, I think, played it a little bit bad. He kind of played a little bit too hard to the corner, but that's probably due to Justin Jefferson's route running on the post, right? Like, it's Justin Jefferson. He's going to sell it really well. And then, Jalen Naylor at the end of that play, like getting in there and getting the block to help JJ finish it off. Like crazy play by him, crazy play by that back judge that everybody's going crazy about. Just like a crazy play all around. Everybody gets an A+ on that play on the Vikings, I guess. That big post touchdown, like, I also was kind of had an eye or, on red zone, like while I was watching the game. So I saw the Rashid Shaheed touchdown. And I was like, I don't know how Rashid Shaheed just outran two of the Cowboys defenders, but I guess Rashid Shaheed's really fast, right? And then Justin Jefferson does the exact same thing in our game for an even longer touchdown. So it was just really fun to see that, like, crazy arrogant throw. I love running big play action shots on the goal line if you can protect it. And by the way, great protection by the offensive line on that play. Brian O'Neill was 1-on-1 against Bosa. Aaron Jones had a great chip on. I posted it was Hargrave. It was actually Malik Collins. Garrett Bradbury took on a blitzing Fred Warner, made a clean pocket for Sam Darnold. So really great play all around.
And the throw was amazing. I mean, I know you're shouting out Darnold, but like that is a narrow window because like the safety was a split second late, but that was kind of all. It was like, you're doing the standard Yankee kind of high load type setup. And the safety was just you respected the dig underneath a little bit too long. But it was like a split second, but like that's not a touchdown if Darnold doesn't pretty perfectly place it where Jefferson can hit it in stride and keep running fast downfield. And then you have the Naylor block on top. And Jefferson, by the way, having like the field vision to see like, I'm going to cut across and maximize my yak this way. Mm-hmm. But then if I cut back, I'm faster redirecting than you two, which is why I'm a wide receiver and you guys are like a safety in a corner.
Yeah.
And then getting the Naylor block to seal the deal at the end. Yeah, it was flowers to everybody on that play. Pass protection, including the running back, the tackles. Sam Darnold stepping up in the pocket, making that throw. Hard throw to make that accurately, and when you're throwing it that far downfield, and then of course Justin Jefferson with the yak to finish it. So,
I did not give enough flowers to that throw. When I just went over it there because like it's still a 55-yard absolute bomb in the air. Like you're hitting Justin Jefferson in stride, but you're also out throwing the safety in the corner on that play, right? And that's a really difficult thing to do on that type of deep shot. So, really,
this is what awesome. Sam Darnold does. Like Sorry to interrupt, but like I remember watching when we played Darnold against the Panthers, and they had that like fourth quarter almost come back to us, and he nailed some throws, and I'm like, okay, if I ignore everything else you've done, and I just look at this one crazy fourth down throw where you're throwing like a dart 30 yards downfield, like I get it, I get how you got drafted, and like it was the same thing, like that Justin Jefferson in the Giants game, the deep what was that like the not seam, but like that.
Oh yeah.
Against the Giants, like these throws, like I know like Darnold has his issue, but like he will do this where he will, and this is a thing that he will do. Like he will make those crazy big time throws. And so I'm excited to see more of that. We saw a little bit of the silly interceptions too. But I think Kevin O'Connell's doing a really good job putting Darnold in a position where the big time throws come a little bit more easily and the reads come a little bit more easily. You're throwing to better receivers than he's ever been throwing to, and you're taking away the opportunities to get into some of the bad habits that you accumulated with your prior teams. So, huge shout out to Darnold, who's playing the best football of his career.
Yeah, absolutely. Another huge shout out, though, to Kevin O'Connell from the offensive design perspective. I think there are there's probably so many plays that you can put into hey, we have a really, really good play caller for this football team, right? Category. But the first one to me was the screen to Aaron Jones. You mentioned the blocking on this screen, but I thought the design wrinkle was neat too. The Vikings run it like it's counter. So they pull Ed Ingram the opposite direction of the screen, and they pull the tight end as well. And it just gives a little bit more space because it froze Fred Warner on the backside, and that made the block out in space for, I think it was Bradbury and Brandell going out in space. So Bradbury is able to take the wall linebacker, Devondre Campbell, completely block him out of the play. And it gave Brandell more time to load up and get to and block Fred Warner to prevent him from making one of the crazy, another crazy play on the list of crazy plays he made in this game. And it just got, a 15-yard gain for Aaron Jones, right? Get you a first and goal. That one was fun. Another really fun one was a leak play to Trent Sherfield where Sherfield got wide open. The reason he got wide open in that play is the play fake has him motion across the screen and then run in between the tackle and the guard. This is like an old Cooper Kupp play from the Rams, and he's out in the flat. So it's not like we call leak, right? The one where you get like a Kyle Juszczyk. The Kyle Juszczyk is wide open down the field play, right? That the 49ers always run. That's a traditional play where the actual play call is leak. But this is just a leak out of the backfield to get Trent Sherfield wide open. I thought it was a really cool design wrinkle. Third design wrinkle was the Naylor touchdown. I think this is honestly a relatively popular play action. Like the Vikings didn't just invent this, but they motion Naylor in to be the insert player in duo, which means he's between the tackle and the tight end. On duo runs, this is something that's very common for offenses to do. And then they ran him directly at Charvarius Ward, who had a rough game against duo in particular. And this play action kind of added to that. But they run him directly at Charvarius Ward. He bites all the way like it's duo. Jalen Naylor ends up wide open once again for a touchdown in the end zone, right? Very difficult for the defense who, wants to stop the run in the red zone, right? They don't want to allow a 5-6 yard run to get you within 4 yards, right? It's a lot harder to pass from 10 yards out than it is from 4 yards out in the red zone area. So really fun wrinkle there that just, completely fools the defense. And then the final one was the Powell third down conversion. This is another theme, I think, from O'Connell is the way he plays with bunches on third down, right? So like he'll have a 3 receiver bunch and then he'll motion it into a stack where it's kind of like a line of them, right? All kind of in a diagonal line. In this case, he started out in the diagonal line, motioned into the bunch, and there was a little bit of confusion on the 49ers, in my opinion, between the two corners. Charvarius Ward, who was the point man, locked the point, so he was in man coverage all the way on Tristan Jackson. The other two looked like they both went with the route that came inside. So I don't know if they were supposed to box it, right, where one guy's assigned to take the outside corner, if they were supposed to play man coverage. Either way, Charvarius Ward played so physical with Tristan Jackson that Tristan Jackson was able to basically just block him 10 yards up the field, right? And that's legal in that case because Charvarius Ward was the one who initiated contact. And then Brandon Powell was able to run an easy out route off of that to get a first down. It's just like all of the little cool pre-snap motions and design wrinkles that Kevin O'Connell was able to run, create just confusion for the defense, first of all, and then give guys easier access to the plays that they need to make. So wanted to shout out him for those.
Yeah, really good stuff. And we're lucky to have such good play callers and scheme guys on both sides of the ball. I think you can really tell what a well-coached team this is. And I feel like one of the highest compliments to an offensive scheme is when you start seeing other folks do it. Like I was watching the Falcons the other day, and that Drake London touchdown was like, I feel like that was not that Kevin O'Connell invented this. Lots of other teams have been doing it, but the bunch where you motion the 3 to the 1 and then you run the quick from the motion guy. That's how Drake London got that touchdown. And I was like, it's a Kevin O'Connell move, like right there, boom. You're seeing other teams pick it up. So, and he's just so good at like zeroing in on like, put yourself in the eyes of Fred Warner and be like, okay, I'm gonna motion the sniffer inside. Like to me as a viewer, I was like, okay, we're running duo. Like because I've seen that 100 times and like 99 times out of 100, it's like just an obvious duo run play, and like that's just what you're setting up when you move the wide receiver inside to help with a combo block. And so like to be able to identify that and be like, yeah, we're gonna put ourselves into the minds of the defense and figure out like, oh, GY counter, I'm seeing the guys pulling. Okay, so now I'm going to flow with a counter motion or whatever, and then just exploiting those first steps. Like, what is the linebacker thinking in that first second after the snap, and exploiting that. They're really good at that stuff, and they're really good at the details. So, also to have you break it down, but it's really good stuff from the coaching.
I agree 100%. I actually thought live that they were running duo on that play. You just see that motion and you're like, oh, it's duo. And then they score a touchdown. And you're like, oh, they got them with the duo motion. They got me too, but they got them. Yeah. So yeah, Kevin O'Connell, great stuff. Sam Darnold, honestly, some really nice stuff. We'll get into a little bit of the miscues and things to clean up for the Vikings here in a little bit, but just to give him his flowers, right? You see the athleticism on like the first drive of the game, the first third down of the game, I think, right? Darisaw wasn't really able to handle a stunt all that great from Hargrave. It got Hargrave into Darnold's lap a little bit. He spins out of it. He's got wide open space. He gets like 17 yards when he needs 3. You see some of the athleticism. You see him in the 2-minute drill have the wherewithal to see it's man coverage down the field. See he's got a wide open running lane, but then also the ability to get down and give the Vikings the opportunity to call the timeout and kick the field goal. Like, really good combination of skills there. And then, the seam ball to Jalen Nailor on that final drive, right? We already talked about one of the designs. The third down play I thought was just a good route by Brandon Powell to be able to get open and good trust from Darnold to put the ball on him. But that second one is just a ridiculously confident throw from Sam Darnold, right? It's one where when you see the coverage player turn around with Nailor, you can hit it, but it takes a lot to be able to actually unleash that throw with the coverage around him. It's a great adjustment for Nailor. The way the ball is placed, nobody else has the ability to play the ball on that. And underrated aspect of that play, in my opinion, is Blake Brandel did get walked back into Sam Darnold's lap. So he's throwing without the ability to follow through and still makes an absolute rope of a throw. So really awesome combination of things there.
It bears repeating. I mean, we're not the first to say this, but worth saying again, like Christian Jackson, Brandon Powell, these guys, Jalen Nailor, these guys were not intended to be the guys that
by
would be
the
out
way,
there.
Jordan Addison, Justin Jefferson, and TJ Hawkinson are out of the game at that point. So,
yeah, so Sam Darnold with the second team. I mean, shoot, Sam Darnold's like second team too in a little bit too. Like our whole second team is going down, marching the 49ers down the field on a 7-minute drive, and Darnold commanding that. Some third downs, like you'd like to see them get the first downs on the first downs, but to be able to take out 7 minutes of the game and drive down and score to put the game away as a 2-score game with less than 2 minutes left or whatever it ended up being, that is extremely good football, and it is extremely satisfying to watch and to see Darnold do it. Not throwing to Jefferson, Addison, and Hawkinson where we can be like, oh, yeah, but the support cast, but throwing to Christian Jackson, Brandon Powell, and Jalen Nailor with the pass protection, creating some pressure for him, too, along the way. You have to really tip your cap to Darnold and what he was able to do there. So that's really encouraging and exciting to see for him.
Yeah. And on third and long too, right? Like, it's not like it's a first down throw where, hey, you find a little bit of advantage. They're expecting run, like whatever. It's third and long. You need to convert to keep the drive going, to run the clock out on the 49ers, which they were eventually able to do, right? The 49ers drive takes too long. Onside kick, the Vikings recover. They're able to just kneel out the game. That's the perfect scenario that you want if you're not going to go down and score a touchdown, right? Which they were not quite able to do, but that's okay. That being said, right, wasn't a perfect football game. Certainly some things to clean up for the Vikings. We are seeing some early season turnovers and issues that I hope we can actually clean up this time, right? Like last year, I think it got cleaned up. Then we had the injuries. Then it just became a complete mess by the end of the season with the backup quarterbacks and all that stuff, right? First thing that happened on the first drive, and it was really all drive killing stuff. I think some of this stuff was, right. You had the botched pitch play to Aaron Jones, right. I think Johnny Munt just had the wrong play call. He went in motion. They actually got a penalty for illegal motion on that play because both he and Jefferson was in motion. I think it was on Munt. It looked like Munt was the one who was frustrated with himself after the play because I think he got it wrong. It made Sam Darnold have to try to throw the ball over Munt with just where Munt was, so he didn't throw it directly into him. And we were lucky, frankly, that Aaron Jones was able to recover it right for a 13-yard loss on that play. 2 plays later, the drive's over. So rough one on that. It's just something, hey, you got to get the play call right. There was a play last week where the Vikings were running a screen. Everybody on the offense was running a screen except for Sam Darnold, who I don't think knew it was a screen. So maybe it's a communicating the offense or understanding exactly what the play call is from Darnold, kind of situation, or being able to get it if you're checking into something else, being able to make sure everybody's on the same page. Hopefully that's something that gets better as time goes on. Right. But second one was on Sam Darnold in an interception to Warner. It was kind of a repeat play call of the fake screen post wheel that the Vikings ran last week is a touchdown nailer, right? Like got the defense to bite on it immediately last week. This time, I've been putting it as sometimes you're the manipulator and sometimes you're the manipulated, right? And Sam Darnold was manipulated by Fred Warner on this play. They're trying to manipulate Fred Warner. He doesn't bite. And there is a window for that post route to Trent Sherfield if Fred Warner is moved by a heavy shoulder fake by Sam Darnold to the screen route. But because Fred Warner isn't moved by that, because he's really smart, because he's the best linebacker in the game, right? He's not, and he's right there to intercept the pass. It looks like Sam Darnold just didn't see him. And it's kind of a rough situation. So if you're Darnold, like, I guess you got to double check if you're going to rip that. Now, the safety's coming down from the other end, so you need to rip it really quickly, but you just need to not throw the ball directly to your opponent, right? Like, there's certainly it's a great play by Fred Warner. You can't do that on the offensive side of the ball. And like people have complained about, oh, we were so successful running the ball. Why did we throw the ball there? That doesn't bother me, right? Like you have to mix up the run and pass. If you keep running, you're probably not going to be as successful for the remainder of the drive, right? If they're keying on the run. So like not really that big of a question for me. It's just, hey, don't make a mistake like that.
Yeah. And look, it's not like he threw it directly to Fred Warner and didn't see him. Like I think Fred Warner made a ridiculous play, mucking up the passing window. I can understand in the making a split-second decision, being like, I'm just going to rip this in there, and then being like, oh shoot, Fred Warner made a crazy leaping grab, diving sideways or diagonally off the ground or whatever. So it's a bad interception, but at the same time, it's not like totally boneheaded. Like I can understand the logic in the heat of the moment. So worth cleaning up, but it's not like doesn't take away from Sam Darnold's overall excellent game in my mind.
No, absolutely. And one of the other things with Darnold, and I have this is like kind of a negative, but honestly it might be a positive, right? Because I think he's left a couple of more aggressive options on the table, which I'm almost fine with, because I don't want him to get overly aggressive and start turning the ball over like the old Sam Darnold, right? Like if he's just throwing everything up, I think we might have some questions about where we are as an offense, right? The one that stuck out to me was on one of the third downs. It was the one where Fred Warner again deflected a pass to Aaron Jones, right? That was short of the sticks. Hey, you have Aaron Jones on a runaway route against a linebacker. That's awesome. You should probably throw that ball. You have Aaron Jones on a runaway route against Fred Warner. Maybe we need to have a different discussion, but like as a general rule, I'm fine with him throwing that. Also on that play, Jalen Nailor cooked the corner who was playing. The safety overplayed it based on where Darnold was looking. If Darnold had the ability to get back to the other side of the field and throw the over to Jalen Nailor, it's a huge play. It might be a touchdown. It's at the very least a first down conversion. So like there was an aggressive option. He might have been able to find it. It was man coverage. So like you try to look for your runaway beaters against man coverage. He chose one that honestly wasn't winning in Jones, right? Like Warner was in his hip pocket, but at the end of the day, you know what? I'm fine with that. Don't overdo it. Kind of as a player. The other one I thought he missed was he ended up with a 0-yard scramble. There was also a I'm sorry. It was not Jalen Nailor. I believe I'm trying to remember. Sorry. I don't exactly remember offhand. It might've been Jalen Nailor on a wheel route winning down the field again, who was open. He just doesn't get back to that side of the ball and scrambles and ends up getting I guess it went as a 0-yard sack for Fred Warner, right? So end of the day, like nothing too egregious, right? It's not like we missed a read and threw a pick, but we failed to convert a third down conversion and we got, a nothing out of a game where I think we did have an open receiver, on that play. So I would love if we could get to the point where Sam Darnold isn't making mistakes and is taking those throws. I'll take where we're at, where we're generally running an efficient offense and Sam Darnold isn't quite being as aggressive as he possibly could be.
Yeah, 100%. Some meat left on the bone. That'll always happen. With Sam Darnold, it's on the Alex Smith, Derek Carr continuum to the Jay Cutler or, young Matt Stafford continuum of like, check down Charlie versus don't care, F it, he's down there somewhere. Sam Darnold is kind of the opposite of Kirk Cousins, where Kirk, it was kind of like you're not leaving meat on the bone, or you're taking what the defense gets you. But I'd love to see a little bit more aggression sometimes. Darnold's the opposite, dial back the aggression a little bit. But I think you're right. Like we'll absolutely take this version of Darnold, even if there were some things that could have kept drives sustained or could have picked up explosives where we were getting a little bit less. So.
Yeah. So, last thing is there were a couple miscues by the offensive line. Sam Darnold sacked 3 times. I mentioned one of those was that 0-yard sack I just talked about, not really on the offensive line there. But we did have the big intentional grounding in this game as well, right? So really kind of 3 sacks in this situation. The intentional grounding to me was just a ridiculous play by Javon Hargrave. He had the cadence down because I slowed this down as much as I didn't blow it out frame by frame, but I swear that he moved the instant that Garrett Bradbury moved the football. Like his hand is moving as soon as Garrett Bradbury's hand is moving on the snap. He gets into the backfield. Bradbury has no chance. Ingram has no chance. He almost gets Sam Darnold on the play fake, right? Like it was just an absurd play. Eventually, I don't remember who it was, but it was probably the edge rusher to that side. Gets to him. Sam Darnold pumps, trying to, incite something from the defender and continue to get away. But he throws the ball as he's getting taken down after the pump. I think he probably should have just, if you're Sam there, I would just let the play die, throw the ball into the dirt at the target you're intending to throw it to, and just live to see another down or throw it out rather than trying to extend the play a little bit more there. You have a lead at that point, right? If you're down, maybe it's a little bit more of a question and you're trying to make a little bit more of a play, but you have a lead against a really good football team. Don't do something disastrous. And it was almost disastrous, right? The first sack for Bosa, who got 2 sacks in this game. One was absolutely him. The other one was a cleanup basically of another nice play. The first sack was against Darisaw. Sam Darnold dropped back. I think it was a 3rd down. And it was kind of 3rd down and short, and the Vikings were running a deep passing concept. Maybe I'm mixing up plays, but I thought it was kind of a curious play call, but Darnold drops back to 10 yards, right? And we talked about this a ton, where drop back depth for the quarterback really matters. And it was a 5-step drop. You will see a 10-yard drop back, even from a Kirk Cousins in that scenario. But I think Kirk has always historically really only made it to 9 yards on those types of plays. And then also he's really good about hitching up in the pocket. And I think that's where we've seen some of the interior pressure in the past, was just Kirk was playing so close to that offensive line and helping out the tackles so much that it kind of made that difference. Sam sits back there at 10 yards. Darisaw gets beat around the edge. And I think Darisaw got beat pretty clean by Bosa on this play. So it wasn't really a great block in general, but sacks Sam Darnold. So, a little bit of a frustrating play. One of the best players in the game going up against our tackle, who's one of the best players in the game. Bosa wins this one. Not something that I'm like, this is goal. I don't think it's something that's going to happen every week, right? You're not playing Nick Bosa every single week, but something to watch out for in terms of the pocket depth for Darisaw, because it's something we've talked about for a long time. The other one is maybe a bit more of a systemic issue with Ed Ingram, right? Who just got flat out beat by Malik Collins on the play, and then Darnold gets flushed and he gets a little turned around, I think, because this was definitely a 3rd down and short. And I thought he had the ability to run for a 1st down. And there's a second where it looks like he's going to run for the 1st down. And then he turns to scramble to his right where Nick Bosa is, looks Nick Bosa in the face and runs right into him. And I was like, dude, what are we doing on this play? But, at the end of the day, he got a bit turned around and it ended up turning into a sack, but it was really because Ed Ingram lost immediately on the play, right, and let up interior pressure. And anything beyond Sam Darnold escaping the initial sack was honestly a win for him. So, I happened a bunch last week against Dexter Lawrence for Ed Ingram, right? I'm not like Nick Bosa. I'm not going to penalize you too hard for losing to Dexter Lawrence, but it's probably an inconsistency from Ingram that we're just going to have to live with him as our right guard. At the end of the day, I don't think it's like a death knell for the Vikings offense that he has some of these struggles, but it's worthwhile to note that he does.
Yeah. I mean, like the Giants with Dexter Lawrence, these are really good players. They're going to get theirs. I think if you went in and said the 49ers will get, 2 sacks plus a cleanup, probably live with that when you're going up against guys of that caliber.
Yeah.
So yeah, hopefully we improve on it next week. And the other thing that like some of these mistakes were real drive killers, and that's what makes them particularly tough. So yeah, things to clean up, but still, nonetheless, very dominant, exciting win over a very, very good team.
I will say one of the positive things I thought is the Vikings were very clean picking up stunts. Like that's something that historically struggled with, particularly on the right side, and they were very clean at doing that in this game. So that was nice. The last thing I had on the list was the Aaron Jones fumble. I don't think we honestly need to talk too much about it. It's just like can't fumble on the goal line. Not something I expected Aaron Jones to do. It happened. It sucked. Don't fumble, please. Hold on.
Yeah, just another, Fred Warner making the perfect punch. Really incredible game by Fred Warner. So, you take care of the football, hold on to it tightly, even if you're trying to make that final cross against the. And to be clear, I think this was more a good Fred Warner play than a bad Aaron Jones ball security. It's not like he was like loose with the carriage or whatever, but obviously extremely costly when you get turnover from the jaws of the 1 yard line, almost touchdown. So that sucked, but it happens.
It is what it is. And that'll wrap up the 49ers game, right? Not a perfect game from the Minnesota Vikings. They're not a perfect team. I think they're a lot better team than I thought they were going to be heading into the season. And I think that's what the takeaway is. I don't, maybe if the Vikings play the 49ers on a neutral field, it's not a win, but they're going to be competitive once again, right? Or if they go to San Francisco and play the 49ers again, like maybe they don't win the game, but I think they have the capacity to be competitive against one of the best teams in the NFL. They beat one of the best teams in the NFL. I think this is a pretty good football team. Maybe it's not the best football team, but pretty good. So I'm really happy with the results from that game. Anything else before we move on to the Texans?
No, real encouraging stuff. I mean, yeah, I think we're all reevaluating just how good this team can be. Like we went from they're going to finish last in the division to, okay, they beat the Giants, but like the Giants are kind of a toilet basement team. So I don't know what to make with that, to now going like toe to toe with the 49ers and not looking outclassed. And not only not looking outclassed, but like being in control the entire game and winning and never trailing at any point in the game, and just feeling like teams are evenly matched in a lot of ways. That's the encouraging part for me. So that's not to say the wheels can't fall off. I mean, they were saying like, oh, it's the first time the Vikings started 2-0 since 2016, and 2016, the wheels fell off then. But at the same time, the talent here feels a little bit more put together. So.
Yeah, 2016, I just remember the first game of the season, Sean Hill started the quarterback. We got like 2 defensive touchdowns against the Titans, right? Like I think there was a lot of unsustainability happening at the beginning of that season. And, there's been turnovers for the Vikings, right? I don't think those are particularly sustainable. But the Vikings have also turned the ball over, right? So I think there's, the way the Vikings have been winning is by moving the ball down the field on offense. So I'm pretty encouraged by that result. And I think the expectation, honestly, moving forward should be a playoff team. Like for the rest of the season, you start 2-0, you should make the playoffs. You beat the 49ers, you really should make the playoffs. So, I was like, maybe there's a chance if everything clicks that they'll make the playoffs probably heading into the season. Now I'm really pretty firmly in they should make the playoffs in the NFC right now. So if we flip it over to another team that's 2-0, another team that had much higher expectations than the Vikings and looks really, really good through 2 weeks. We all got to see their defense. I mean, just make the Bears look silly. Their offense, I saw somebody tweeted this I think it was actually on the Athletic Football Show. Derek Klassen said, CJ Stroud is now one of the quarterbacks where when he rolls out of the pocket or when he throws the ball down the field where you can't see what's happening down the field, you just expect that it's going to be a completion and a big play. And I think that's absolutely true. Like, even in that Bears game, the Bears have a really good defense. Like, to give them credit, I think they have a really good defense and particularly a very nice secondary. CJ Stroud was making plays or nearly making plays that were just absolutely ridiculous on a consistent level. He's a really phenomenal quarterback. I can't emphasize that enough. He even though it's only the second year, like obviously what we saw at the end of last year where the Texans really turned it on, they had a phenomenal first playoff game before ending up losing to the Ravens. I think that's legit, right? And we're getting a team that has not only CJ Stroud, but Nico Collins, who's turned into one of the best receivers in the NFL, Stephon Diggs, who's still a really good receiver, Tank Dell, who's explosive, right? And really fast as a player. And then they've put together a solid running game so far this season. So I'm really, it's going to be a great test for this Brian Flores defense, right? We went to a machine in the 49ers offense and they got some yards on us, but ultimately I think Brian Flores' defense came out with a win. It's going to be a similar scenario here. Like, I have no doubt that the Texans are going to score points against the Minnesota Vikings. It's just, can the defense make enough plays in critical moments? Like, and this is what you need to do in the playoffs to win games in the playoffs. It's not you need to completely shut down your opponent who has Patrick Mahomes or Lamar Jackson or CJ Stroud or, Brock Purdy in the 49ers offense or Jalen Hurts. Like, it's, you need to make critical plays in critical moments to be able to win the football game. So I'm really hopeful that we're able to see that again. Right. And CJ Stroud's ability to diagnose the defense, I think is maybe on another level from Brock Purdy's. Like, I think Brock Purdy's a really good football player. He's not as good as CJ Stroud is, right? So it'll be another interesting test for this Flores defense with all these varied coverages to see if we're able to kind of limit Stroud a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, we're just coming off the 49ers game, but this is going to be one of the toughest matchups. This is one of top to the bottom, in my opinion, one of the most talented rosters in football right now, and they're well coached too. And it starts with CJ Stroud, who is, quickly, he's 22, and he's already kind of, I feel like, consensus top 5-ish or at least top 10-ish looking in quarterback.
Yeah.
So he's phenomenal quarterback. Will be very interesting to see how Flores attacks him because he's young, but he doesn't play young at all.
Mm-hmm.
And they've got some very, very effective pass rush or pass catchers. We all know how good Diggs is. Nico Collins, I used to think of him as just kind of like a quick glance route kind of guy, like he's vertical, but he's kind of evolved his game to something so much more than that. Like I said, Tank Dell, explosive, another speed threat. So this is not a team that you can just like go out with Stephon Gilmore and say like, oh, he's got cover one all game. Like, I think you're asking for trouble there. So it'll be interesting to see what they do. And Laramie Tunsil, obviously one of the top tackles in the game too. So like and Joe Mixon's still a really good running back. So, and that's just the offensive side of the ball. I mean, they've got studs. Derek Stingley and we know Danielle Hunter. It'll be a revenge game for him too. Will Anderson on the other side from him. So, and Derek Barnett backing them up, just like the stable of pass rushers, and good coverage on the back end. Jalen Petrie. So there's a lot, like, these are a lot of really talented, really young, fun, up and coming, ascending roster coaching talent. So it feels like a little bit of a meat grinder to come out of the 49ers game and go straight to the Texans. But like, shoot, like, if this is, we're talking about like playoff aspirations, well, let's see some more playoff football. So this will be a really, really good test. I think both for Brian Flores, particularly because I think Stroud in this passing offense is a particular challenge. And I think for Sam Darnold on the offensive side of the ball, and the pass protection, this is going to be a really good challenge. This is going to be for Stingley and just Jefferson, assuming that's the matchup. It'll be like, there'll be a lot of heavyweight bouts going with every single position group across both sides of the football. And that's, to me, as tough as the matchup is, that's what makes it really exciting. And if they come out of this game with a win, then we're really talking. Then we're really talking like, adjust your expectations, Super Bowl or bust, man. And if they don't, like, look, like, you go up against the 49ers Texans and you come out with 1-1, like, that is a win in my book. So will be a fun matchup.
Yeah, I mean, I was looking at what, like 1-4, like, honestly, because we're playing the Packers, I think, next week as well, or the week after. I think it's Packers week 4, or maybe they're week 5. But like, it's just a gauntlet of teams that I expected to be good after that first initial Giants game. So really, if the Vikings win this football game, and they don't do it in a fluky way, right? They win like they won against the 49ers. I think you have to start talking about this team as one of the contenders in the NFL, which is crazy to think about with Sam Darnold as your quarterback. I got to be honest. But to kind of flip it, one of the things I'm interested in to see if we can shut down their running game, right? They had a lot of success week 1 against the Colts they played in week 1. They ran for like 150 yards, something like that. Joe Mixon did by himself. The Colts obviously didn't have a great run defense in the second week either. I don't think their run game is nearly as diverse or talented, even though Bobby Slowick is from the Shanahan tree, as the Kyle Shanahan run game, right? The Vikings completely shut down the Giants in week 1. So I'm hopeful that the defensive line will kind of be able to take over in that aspect on early downs and then force CJ Stroud to throw the football, right? Obviously, CJ Stroud, phenomenal to throw the football. You still need to solve that problem on the coverage end, but hopefully if you make them one-dimensional, it makes the game a little bit easier on you. There's so much intrigue in terms of players that have gone from team to team in this game. Like, you mentioned some of them, but on the Viking side of the ball, we have Shaq Griffin, who was a Texan last year, right? Ended up getting, I believe, requested to trade. You have both Greenard and Cashman, right, who came over from the Texans. You have the trade, the quote unquote trade, the free agency, where Danielle Hunter goes to the Texans, Jonathan Greenard in turn comes to the Vikings, right? You have Cam Akers, who's now on the Texans as a running back, got some run in the second game. Cam Akers, who the Vikings decided not to medically clear. Like, there were reports that we signed him, and then all of a sudden he wasn't signed and he was on the Texans after his Achilles injury from last year, right? So it's just like there's so much in terms of intrigue from those players in this game. It'll be really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of storylines, a lot of heavyweight matchups. So it feels like a playoff football game. I know it's crazy to say, like, we're 3 games into the season, but like, yeah, this is a battle of the Clash of the Titans.
Yeah, and on the defensive line, I think another tremendous test for the Vikings offensive line stood up. I guess not great against Dexter Lawrence, right? Like, the pass protection was not great. He got a ton of pressures. The rest of the Giants defensive line, I think, did nothing. Held relatively in check, in my opinion, the 49ers defensive line in this past game. Like, Darnold was relatively clean on most of the plays. The Bears had an awful time trying to protect. I think everybody saw on Monday Night Football, trying to protect Caleb Williams. Couldn't pick up a stunt to save their lives. Danielle Hunter absolutely roasting both Braxton Jones and Darnell Wright. I mean, there's nothing new there with Danielle Hunter roasting Braxton Jones or Darnell Wright. He did it for years with the Vikings, but just a tremendous defensive line will be really interesting. I think they are a little bit edge rusher focused, which should play to the Vikings' benefit, right? Because you've got Darrison, you've got O'Neal, and the questions are more on the interior. The questions will come to me. Are the Vikings able to continue to pick up the stunts at the level that they did against the 49ers, where I thought they did a really good job, because this Texans defensive line is going to stunt a bunch. And then, in terms of attacking the secondary, Derek Stingley is a phenomenal player. It's another intrigue is it's an LSU versus LSU matchup. They played together on that 2019 championship team, right? Stingley and Justin Jefferson. Obviously, Stingley was a true freshman, played ridiculously. I think you and I both have a ton of respect for Stingley when we studied him coming out of that draft class. I think he was my favorite player, even above Sauce Gardner. And look, he's played really well. He had injury issues, I think, his first year, but he played really, really well in his second year last year. So I don't think a single player in the league can truly shut down Justin Jefferson one-on-one. So if they leave him out there on an island all game, I would just tell Sam Darnold to throw it. But maybe there's a chance of that. If they give him help, it's going to be the other weapons have to step up. I would doubt Jordan Addison. I don't know what your read on it, but I doubt Jordan Addison is going to play in this game. So it's going to need to be Jalen Nailor and kind of the other weapons from the offense.
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah, so it'll be a tough matchup, but so was this last week, and the Vikings came out on top. So yeah, hopefully that continues.
Yeah, and it was like, I kind of gave keys to the game. I think that's the key to the game is find an answer other than Justin Jefferson offense, maybe run the ball a little bit. And, it's so cliche to say, make the Texans one dimensional and make them pass the ball. But honestly, it's just, hopefully Brian Flores' defense confuses CJ Stroud to the point where they're not like a hyper efficient passing offense. And then the Vikings have a shot to win the game.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's that simple, just make CJ Stroud look, pedestrian and confuse him.
Yeah.
And shut down their rush attack and have somebody other than Justin Jefferson emerge as, a go-to target. Yeah. That easily said. So
Yep, easily said. We'll see if the Vikings are able to do it going into the next week, and I think we're going to wrap it up for the day. So, anything else you wanted to hit on? Anything we missed in this review / preview, Nick?
I am just happy. I'm just happy to be back.
Yeah, no,
So
absolutely.
good stuff.
So we'll wrap it up here. You can find me, Matt Freese, at Fries Football. You can find him, Nick Olson, at Nick Olson NFL. We are Kindred Skulls, at Kindred Skulls on Twitter. Available Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Also on YouTube. Yeah. And with that, Skull Vikings.
Cool. Bye. We love you.